JDBC driver manager in Java database connectivity. Now we are focusing on JDBC driver manager, the basic service for managing a set of JDBC drivers. Note, the data source interface provides another way to connect to a data source. The use of a data source object is the preferred means of connecting to a data source. Here you can see driver manager manages connection to DBS. What's the function of the driver manager class? Here, in a nutshell, the driver manager class manages connections to databases. According to JDK 1.4, the old version, the driver manager provides the basic service for managing a set of JDBC drivers. As part of its initialization, the driver manager class will attempt to load the driver classes referenced in the JDBC.driver system property. This allows a user to customize JDBC drivers used by their applications. JDBC.drivers equal org.git gjt.mm.mysql.driver oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. For example, note that the drivers are separated by a colon. Here, a program can also explicitly load JDBC drivers at any time. For example, following example loads MySQL and Oracle drivers. For example, class.forename within bracket and within quotations org.gjt.mm.mysql.driver. The other one is class.forename within brackets and within double quotations jdbc.driver.oracle driver. When get connection method is called, the driver manager will attempt to locate the suitable driver from among those loaded at initialization and those loaded explicitly using the same class loader as the current applet to application. This figure illustrates the function of the driver manager class. The driver manager class manages the JDBC drivers in the system. It maintains a registry of drivers and locates the appropriate driver to handle a JDBC URLs. On startup, the driver manager loads all the managers specified by the system property jdbc.drivers. The value of this property should be a colon separated list of fully qualified driver class names. You can load additional drivers at any time by simply loading the driver class with class.forename string driver class name. The driver should automatically register itself in a static initialization. Here, database application interacts with driver manager. A driver manager interacts with, here, for example, Sybase driver, Oracle driver, MySQL driver. Here, Sybase driver interacts with Sybase database. Here, Oracle driver interacts with Oracle database. Here, MySQL driver interacts with MySQL database. As an example, we can consider class driver manager. The basic service for managing a set of JDBC drivers. Not the data source interface provide another way to connect to a data source. The use of a data source object is the preferred means of connecting to a data source. This is in the module java.sql and package java.sql. As a part of the initialization, the driver manager class will attempt to load available JDBC drivers by using point 1, the JDBC dot drivers system property, which contains a colon separated list of fully qualified class names of JDBC drivers. Each driver is loaded using the system class loader. The point 2, system providers of the java.sql.driver class that are loaded via the service provider loading mechanism. As an example 2, we can consider this code segment. Register by using a system property. Each virtual machine has its own method of setting system properties. For example, the Java command from the JDK uses the -d option to set system properties. To set the driver using system properties, specify this following here. This is the fully qualified class names, class name of the JDBC driver here, com.ibm.as400.access.as400 JDBC driver here. As an example 3, we can consider this code segment. Register by using the Java program to load IBM toolbox for Java JDBC driver. Add the following to the Java program before the first JDBC call. Here the method public static class question mark and the for name string class name throws class not found exception. This returns the class object associated with the class or interface with the given string name. Invoking this method is equivalent to class for name class name through current loader, where current loader denotes the defining class loader of the current class. For example, following code segment returns the runtime class descriptor for the class name java.lang.thread here. A call for the for name x causes the class name x to be initialized. As an example 4, we can consider this one, this code segment, registering JDBC driver. You can explicitly register the IBM toolbox for Java JDBC driver by using following. The method public static void register driver throws SQL exceptions, registers the given driver with the driver manager. A newly loaded driver class should call the method register driver to make itself known to the driver manager. If the driver is currently registered, no action is taken. As an example 5, we can consider this code segment, connecting to the server database and specifying user ID and password. The method public static connection get connection string URL string user string password attempts to establish a connection to a given database to a given database URL, the driver manager attempts to select an appropriate driver from the set of registered JDBC drivers. Note, if the user or password property are also specified as part of the URL, it is implementation defined as to which value will take precedence. For maximum probability or maximum portability, an application should only specify a property once. Now we are considering the driver manager class. This code illustrates how a JDBC client obtains a connection from the driver manager. The class driver manager is in package java.sql in module java.sql, the basic service for managing a set of JDBC drivers. The driver manager class works with the driver interface to manage the set of drivers available to the JDBC client. When a client requests a connection and provides a URL, the driver manager is responsible for finding the driver that's recognized in the URL and using it to connect to the corresponding data source. Key driver manager methods include register driver. This method adds a driver to the set of available drivers and is invoked implicitly when a driver is loaded. The register driver method is typically called by the static initializer provided by each driver. Get connection. The method the JDBC client invokes to establish a connection. This invocation includes the JDBC URL, which the driver manager passes to each driver in its list until it's finds one. Those driver.connect method recognizes the URL. That driver returns a connection object to the driver manager, which in turn passes it to the application. The format of JDBC URL is JDBC subprotocol subname, where subprotocol defines the kind of database connectivity mechanism that may be supported by one or more drivers. The content of and syntax of the subname will depend on the subprotocol. Note, a JDBC URL is not required to fully adhere to the URI, since the URI syntax as defined in the RFC 3986 Uniform Resource Identifier or URI generic syntax. This code example illustrates how a JDBC client obtains a connection from the JDBC driver, from the JDBC driver manager. Here the loading a driver and getting a connection using driver manager. The driver manager class also provides two other get connection methods. Get connection is string URI that connecting to data sources that do not use username and password. Get connection is string URI java.util.properties prop, which allows a client to connect using a set of properties describing the username and password along with any additional information that may be required. The driver property info class provides information on the properties that the JDBC drivers can understand. see the JDBC API specification for more details. Here the setup arguments for the call to the get connection method. Subprotocol Derby in the driver URL indicates the use of the Derby JDBC driver. Get connection from the first driver in the driver manager list that recognizes the URL JDBC Derby sample. The call to get connection will also load the driver if needed. When the driver is loaded, an instance of the driver is created, and the register driver method is also called to make the driver available to a client. As an exception example, you can consider SQL exception. If a database access error occurs or the URL is null in method public static connection get connection string in class driver manager. As an error example, we can consider this one: invalid JDBC URL JDBC MySQL Aurora false chat YYY dash Aurora .xxxx.com 3306 / some DB name here, and URL prefix must be JDBC :JD : //